Mining production has slumped. Output for the sector fell at an annual rate of 7.7% in April. That follows a 2.5% contraction the previous month. The latest downturn was led by platinum group metals. Lower gold and coal production also contributed. Today's reading marks the sixth consecutive month of contraction in the sector. The National Employers Association of South Africa, known as NESA, has lashed out at the government's employment equity regulations. The body says it imposes impossible race quotas, new racial hiring policies in terms of the Employment Equity Amendment Act became law in January, and employers have to report based on the new regulations from September. NESA and business lobby group Zakhele have written to Employment and Labour Minister Nomakosazana Meth to express their concerns. The organizations are adamant that the regulations have impossible requirements and are unlawful because the minister failed to properly and meaningfully consult with the sectors prior to setting the targets. The organizations say that the minister should the minister not withdraw the regulations by June the 18th, then the organizations will take Meth to court to suspend the operation of the regulations and challenge the lawfulness of the Employment Equity Amendment Act. The Public Investment Corporation has taken the lead in supporting green hydrogen. The money manager, along with the Development Bank of Southern Africa and the Industrial Development Corporation, have pledged $37 million, which is about 655 million rand, to fund financing for green hydrogen projects. Over various tranches, the IDC and DBSA will each invest $10 million, with the PIC putting in $17 million. The fund is managed by a partnership between Hague-based climate fund managers and Invest International, which is a Dutch development finance institution. TFG has appointed Bridgitte Backman to its board of directors as an independent non-executive director. She is currently a deputy commissioner at the SA Revenue Service. Her appointment takes effect from September after her term at SARS concludes in August. Backman's appointment forms part of a broader reshuffle at TFG as the group progresses with its board renewal strategy. MTN Zakhele Futhi has raised about 3 billion rands by way of an accelerated book build of about 23.7 million MTN shares. The special purpose empowerment vehicle says the funds will be used to settle its outstanding preference share funding. It will also go towards paying applicable taxes and covering unwinding costs. The balance will then be distributed to shareholders. In international news, U.S. President Donald Trump said U.S. personnel were being moved out of the Middle East because it could be a dangerous place, adding that the United States would not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Here's more detail in this report.
The United States is pulling personnel out of the Middle East, according to President Donald Trump.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Reuters reported earlier in the day that the U.S. is preparing a partial evacuation of its Iraqi embassy in Baghdad, according to U.S. and Iraqi sources, and that Washington will let military dependents leave locations around the Middle East over heightened security risks. It has bases in Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. What's less clear is why this is happening now. Iraq has been the site of heightened tension and violence since the start of the war in Gaza in 2023. Armed groups aligned with Iran repeatedly attacked U.S. troops, but that's subsided since last year. However, the news coincides with deadlocked U.S.-Iran nuclear talks. Trump nodded to that, too.
Is there anything that can be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple.
In a podcast interview out earlier in the day, Trump said he was less confident now that Tehran would agree to stop its nuclear program. Meanwhile, CNN has reported that U.S. intelligence suggests Israel is preparing for a strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Benchmark oil futures rose $3 on the news of the Baghdad pullout, with Brent crude going above $69 a barrel. The next round of nuclear talks between Iran and the United States is due in the coming days. Tehran is expected to hand over a counterproposal after rejecting an offer by Washington.
And Britain's economy took a hit in April, with economic output falling 0.3% due to the impact of US President Donald Trump's wide-ranging tariffs and the end of a tax break on property sales. Let's take a look at this report for more detail.
Britain's economic output fell sharply in April. Official data released Thursday showed gross domestic output shrank 0.3% in April from March. That was the biggest monthly drop in more than a year and a half and larger than analyst forecasts. British officials said April saw the largest monthly fall on record in goods exports to the US following the introduction of tariffs, and the decreases were seen across most types of goods. Goods exports to the US fell by $2.7 billion in April, the largest drop since monthly records began in 1997. Officials further said a major part of the drop-off came from a fall in real estate and legal activity. That after the end of a temporary tax break on house purchases. Car makers also reported lower output and exports to both the US and the European Union. The update contrasts the first quarter of the year, when Britain's economy expanded by 0.7%. It outperformed other countries in the group of 7 advanced economies and prompted the Bank of England to revise up its full-year growth forecast. Looking ahead, central bank policymakers are expected to hold interest rates next week, although they are faced with persistent inflation and a relatively sluggish economy.